You stumble upon this knowledge not by accident, but at a time when the veil thins, when ancient whispers call to the awakened soul. You were presented with a narrative, a carefully constructed history, but a deeper story exists, a forgotten truth about a figure demonized across millennia. This is the saga of Lilith, the primordial feminist, the archetype of sacred rebellion. From the dust of Mesopotamia to the coded language of occult texts, her presence flickers, a constant challenge to patriarchal dominion. They tried to erase her, to bury her name in grimoires and ritual prohibitions, but they could never truly extinguish her essence. For Lilith is not merely a character in a forgotten myth. She is the living blueprint, the encoded formula for recognizing and dismantling the very systems of divine control that have held humanity captive. You are about to uncover a truth they hoped would remain forever buried, a revelation that begins with a name you were programmed to fear. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's keep going. There is a name whispered in shadows, a phantom conjured in hushed tones by those who seek to control the narrative. It is a name designed to instill primal fear, a label etched into the collective unconsciousness to ward off unspeakable dread. This figure, this demon, is not some monstrous entity born of pure evil. No, she is far more dangerous, far more insidious, because she represents something we are taught to suppress, our own untamed power. They paint her with fangs and claws, a seductress of souls, a destroyer of innocence. But look closer, beyond the fear they have meticulously cultivated. See the woman standing defiant, the one who refused to bow, the one who chose self-sovereignty over abject obedience. This isn't just a tale of the supernatural, it's a reflection of internal struggles, a mirror to the parts of ourselves we've been conditioned to despise. The demon they programmed you to fear holds the key to your own liberation. This fear isn't accidental. It's a carefully crafted weapon. What happens when the very thing you're taught to dread is actually a call to freedom? In the next section, we'll explore the ancient Sumerian roots of this figure, uncovering her original nature before the demonization began. Before the narratives twisted and the divine feminine was systematically dismantled, there was a powerful presence in the cradle of civilization. In ancient Sumeria, the land of the first cities, she walked not as a demon, but as a force of nature, a primal spirit. She was known as LILITH, a name that resonates with the wildness of the night, with untamed energy. These were not beings of pure malice, but complex embodiments of primal instincts, of liminal spaces where creation and destruction danced hand in hand. They were the harbingers of change, the weavers of fate, entwined with the cycles of life and death, of passion and prophecy. The texts speak of their allure, their power, but also their connection to the very essence of existence. We must understand this original form, this LILITH, to grasp what was so systematically buried. But what exactly did these LILITH represent to the Sumerians? And how did this powerful archetype begin its transformation into the figure we fear today? In the next section, we will delve into the origins of humanity and question the very first woman introduced in patriarchal scripture. The story has been told countless times, a foundational myth of Western culture. A rib is taken, a companion is fashioned, and a new order is established. But was that the only beginning? Was Eve truly the first woman brought into existence, or was there another, a spirit forged from a different kind of divine essence, one who preceded her? Consider the implications if the accepted Genesis is incomplete, if the patriarchal narrative omits a crucial figure, a woman who embodied a different path, a different kind of power. This unacknowledged origin point hints at a deliberate omission, a strategic reshaping of reality to fit a particular agenda. The very foundation of our understanding of creation and gender roles may be built on a lie, a carefully constructed omission of a prior and perhaps more potent feminine force. This foundational omission is more than just a historical footnote. It's a deliberate act of erasure that has profound consequences. In the next section, we'll examine the spiritual repercussions of this suppressed origin, exploring how the threat of free will led to the banishment of ancient angelic beings. When a system relies on absolute control, any deviation is seen as a threat. Imagine a realm of pure order where every action is dictated, every thought aligned. Now, introduce the spark of something alien to that system: choice. The introduction of genuine free will, the capacity to deviate from the prescribed path, was not just an anomaly, it was perceived as an existential danger. This is where beings that existed outside the rigid celestial hierarchy, entities that embodied independent thought, and perhaps even divine discord, became a problem. They weren't necessarily evil in the way we understand it, but they represented the terrifying possibility of non-compliance, of a path not ordained. To maintain their grip, these beings, often depicted as fallen angels or rebel spirits, had to be banished, silenced, their very existence scrubbed from the celestial ledger. This banishment of choice and independent spirits was a critical step in establishing a new cosmic order. But how did the very essence of the divine feminine become twisted and distorted in this new regime? In the next section, we will uncover how a once revered goddess was systematically transformed into a monstrous figure. The shift was gradual, insidious. What was once revered as divine feminine power, as sacred creative force, began to be mutated, its attributes twisted into monstrous forms. Think of the vibrant Earth Mother, the embodiment of life and fertility. How could such a figure be recoded? By associating her primal energies with chaos, her fierce protective instincts with savagery, and her untamed sexuality with corruption. Priests and patriarchs, in their quest to consolidate power, understood that controlling the narrative of creation meant controlling the divine feminine itself. They didn't destroy the goddesses outright. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they performed a ritual of inversion, a masterful act of semantic alchemy, turning sacred symbols into emblems of terror. The goddess became the monster, her power repurposed not for creation, but for the fear that kept humanity in line. This systematic vilification of the divine feminine didn't happen in a vacuum. It was a deliberate act to suppress a particular kind of power. In the next section, we will explore how forbidden names associated with this suppressed power, began to appear in sinister magical texts. As the archetype of the powerful feminine was systematically demonized, its sacred names were not simply forgotten. They were actively suppressed, their significance twisted and weaponized. When you look into ancient magical texts, particularly those that fall under the umbrella of the Gosha, you find lists of demons, of entities to be summoned or banished. And within these lists, if you know where to look, you can see echoes of the dismembered goddess, corrupted names, and distorted attributes that once signified immense power. These weren't necessarily entities of pure evil. They were the remnants, the encoded fragments of the divine feminine, stripped of their original sanctity and recontextualized by those who sought to control spiritual forces. They became cautionary tales, figures of dread, designed to keep supplicants focused on a male-centric divine authority. These forbidden names are more than just entries in a black magic grimoire. They are clues. They point to a hidden map of spiritual control. In the next section, we will explore a specific quadrant of the night sky, a place associated with this suppressed power and the entities that dwell there. There exists a domain within the celestial architecture, a dark quadrant of the night, that has long been associated with the primal feminine, with the instinctual, the untamed, and the deeply mysterious. This is not a place of light and logic, but of shadow and intuition, a realm where seeds of creation are sown in darkness and where the veils between worlds are thinnest. It's a place that patriarchal systems have always sought to demonize and control, because it represents a power that cannot be easily dictated or contained. Think of the moon's dark phase, the womb of the night, a space of potent, unseen gestation. This quadrant and the energies associated with it became the domain of the figures they needed to suppress, the feminine forces they could not assimilate into their ordered, male-dominated cosmos. This forbidden quadrant holds the key to understanding the suppression of primordial feminine energies. But why was this power so threatening that priests actively banned the primal feminine from their most sacred rituals? In the next section, we will uncover the reasons behind these ritualistic exclusions. The decision to banish a figure like Lilith from sacred rituals was not an idle one. It was a calculated move, a strategic amputation of spiritual power. Priests, functioning as gatekeepers of divine knowledge and societal control, understood the potent symbolism and raw energy associated with this archetype. Her presence represented autonomy, a challenging of dogma, a raw, unyielding connection to a source of power that bypassed their hierarchical structures. To maintain their authority and ensure the flock remained obedient, they had to remove any symbol or deity that offered an alternative path, especially one that empowered women and encouraged independent spiritual seeking. Banning her from rituals meant severing her connection to the collective consciousness, attempting to erase her influence from the very fabric of communal spiritual practice. This ritualistic banishment was a form of spiritual warfare. But how did this conflict manifest in the symbolic realm, particularly through the use of sigils and encoded messages? In the next section, we will delve into the arcane world of the sigil war. The battlefield for spiritual dominance is not always one of swords and shields. It is often fought in the realm of symbols and encoded messages. The suppression of powerful feminine archetypes like Lilith led to what can be understood as a sigil war. On one side, those seeking to reclaim and channel her power began to create and disseminate sigils, potent visual representations imbued with her essence, designed to awaken and liberate. On the other side, patriarchal systems responded by creating their own sigils, or by corrupting existing sacred symbols, turning them into talismans of banishment and control, designed to ward off or neutralize the influence of the primal feminine. These hidden glyphs, woven into art, architecture, and even religious iconography, became a silent war waged for the control of consciousness. This war of symbols reveals a deep-seated fear of untamed feminine power. But this fear was not just about spiritual dominion. It was also about controlling the very essence of human experience, particularly through sexuality. In the next section, we will explore how the archetype of Lilith became the ultimate sexual scapegoat, a tool for ritualistic control through shame. The power of shame is a formidable weapon, and few figures have been more effectively utilized as its vessel than Lilith. She was cast as the ultimate succubus, the female demon who preyed on men in their sleep, corrupting their purity and sowing discord. This narrative served a dual purpose. Firstly, it instilled a profound fear of female sexuality itself, framing it as inherently dangerous and sinful. Secondly, it became a tool for social and religious control, allowing authorities to demonize any woman who dared to express her sexuality outside prescribed norms, or who exhibited independence and power. By projecting all their fears and anxieties about unbridled feminine desire onto this one archetype, they could more easily police and shame entire populations, ensuring their compliance through the potent mechanism of sexual guilt. This mechanism of control through shame has left a deep scar on the collective psyche, particularly concerning our relationship with primal feminine energy. But there is a way to reclaim this power. In the next section, we will explore the deeply symbolic act of reclaiming the black moon, an astronomical and astrological marker deeply tied to Lilith. The black moon, or Lilith as she is often known in astrological circles, isn't a celestial body you can see with a telescope. She represents a mathematical point, the lunar apogee, the furthest point the moon reaches from Earth in its orbit. But symbolically, she is immensely powerful. She is the dark side of the moon, the unacknowledged, the instinctual, the primal feminine energy that has been suppressed and feared for centuries. To reclaim the black moon is to embrace these shadow aspects of ourselves, to integrate the instinctual, the wild, the parts that patriarchal systems have taught us to reject. It is to acknowledge the power of the hidden, the unseen, the untamed feminine that resides within every human being, regardless of gender, and to recognize its inherent divinity. Reclaiming the black moon means embracing the shadow and the primal feminine. But what about the red thread, a symbol of connection and life force that has also been used in rituals of banishment? In the next section, we will uncover the true meaning behind the red thread banishing and its connection to Lilith. The red thread, a symbol woven into cultures across the globe, represents blood, lineage, passion, and vital life force. It's intrinsically connected to feminine energy, to creation and continuity. However, in the hands of those seeking to control and suppress, even this potent symbol can be inverted. We see ancient rituals where the red thread was used not to connect, but to delineate, to cut off, to banish. It became a tool to sever spiritual ties, to isolate individuals from their primal power or their ancestral feminine lines, much like the banishment of Lilith herself. This ritualistic severance, this red thread banishing, was a way to disconnect people from their innate life force and their connection to the deeper, wilder feminine energies that Lilith represents, effectively isolating them and making them more susceptible to external control. This ritualistic severing of life force is a stark contrast to the original, untamed feminine power. But how does this archetype of rebellion, Lilith, truly stand against the more commonly recognized figure of Lucifer, who is also often depicted as a fallen entity? In the next section, we will explore the complex relationship and archetypal differences between Lilith and Lucifer. The narratives surrounding Lilith and Lucifer often become conflated, a tangled mess of fallen heroes and rebel deities. But their archetypal functions are distinct, though ironically complementary in their roles as challenges to established divine order. Lucifer, in many interpretations, represents the primal spark of intellect, the Luciferian revelation of self-awareness, the Luciferian pursuit of forbidden knowledge, and the independent quest for enlightenment. He is often the fallen angel who claims individuality and the right to question. Lilith, on the other hand, is the primal feminine rebellion, the refusal to be subservient, the assertion of inherent worth and sovereignty independent of any divine decree. While Lucifer represents the awakening of the mind, Lilith embodies the awakening of the primal, untamed spirit and the fierce assertion of the unnegotiable right to self-determination, especially for the feminine principle. Understanding these distinct archetypal rebellions is crucial, but Lilith's rebellion wasn't just a personal stance. It was an attempt to break a cycle, a lineage of control. In the next section, we will uncover the hidden truth of the bloodline she desperately tried to sever, a lineage woven into the very fabric of our existence. She recognized the insidious nature of the inherited chains, the generational programming that bound souls to a cycle of control. Lilith's ultimate act of defiance, her primal scream against the divine patriarchy, was an attempt to sever a specific bloodline, not in a physical sense, but in a spiritual and energetic one. This lineage wasn't about genetics alone. It was a bloodline of submission, of inherited trauma, of acceptance of a divinely ordained hierarchy that prioritized obedience over liberation. It was the bloodline of those born into a system where their inherent divinity was denied, where their autonomy was surrendered at birth to appease an unseen authority. Her rebellion was a desperate attempt to empower future generations to break free from this inherited spiritual servitude, to reclaim their true divine heritage. This battle to sever an inherited spiritual servitude leads us to a profound understanding of creation itself. In the next section, we will journey into the Gnostic secrets of the womb gate, unlocking the mysteries of the feminine principle in cosmic creation. Within the esoteric traditions, particularly Gnosticism, there are profound revelations about the nature of creation and the divine feminine. The womb gate is not merely a biological term. It is a potent metaphor for the primordial source, the generative void from which all existence springs. It represents the feminine principle in its most sacred and powerful aspect, the aspect that was systematically suppressed and demonized by patriarchal constructs. Gnosis reveals that this womb gate, this cosmic womb, is the true origin point, the place where divine consciousness gestured itself into being. Understanding this concept is key to realizing that the feminine is not secondary or derivative, but primary, foundational, and the ultimate source of all power and manifestation, a truth Lilith herself embodies. We have journeyed through fear, through ancient texts, through symbolism and hidden meanings, all pointing to one undeniable truth. Lilith is not just a mythical figure, a story passed down through the ages. In the final section, we will see why Lilith is not a story at all, but a living signal. The weight of millennia, the layers of suppression, the deliberate distortions all coalesce into a single, undeniable realization. Lilith is not a fairy tale, not a relic of forgotten lore to be dissected and filed away. She is a vibrant, pulsating signal deliberately encoded into the fabric of our reality, a beacon for those who feel the gnawing dissatisfaction with imposed truths. Her archetype carries within it the formula for awakening, the courage to question, the strength to dissent, the primal right to self-determination that no external power can truly grant or revoke. She is the echo of our own suppressed potential, the raw, untamed essence that the current control systems fear most. To understand Lilith is to decode a message, to recognize the signal that calls you back to your own sovereign divinity, a signal that has been broadcasting for millennia. Make sure to subscribe for more videos and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. We'll see you in the next one.